One of the biggest concepts in Berserk is the creation of its primary antagonists, the Apostles, what some would look at and instinctively call demons. But the interesting thing is that within the world of Berserk, at least that we are aware of so far and what the lore seems to imply, is that there are no legitimate demons that have always existed as such. Instead, every demonic entity is a direct result of humanity itself. All apostles were at one time human, and the same is even true with the God Hand that reside above them. And then we could go into the whole idea of evil concept, but I've already talked about that a few times, and it's not really for this video, but I will leave a link down in the description below of my idea of evil breakdown if you want to check that out. But in today's video, I wanted to take a look at the direct model of how apostles are made, and how its very nature opposes other ways to acquire power within the Berserk story. Let me try to explain what I mean by that, but real quick before I do want to shout out a Patreon supporter of mine. Bleak Kingdom became a Patreon supporter, and he is an artist creating his own dark fantasy story, along with doing all sorts of crazy artwork himself for that story and beyond. The art page and Instagram account will be linked down below for you guys to check out, and I would really appreciate it if you did, as well a link for the comic that he's creating called Bleak Kingdom, which is a story following an 8-foot-tall knight named Pawn, which, love the name by the way, and a witch that is teamed up with him named Leah, as they make their way through this dark world in which they reside, inspired of course by Berserk, Dark Souls, and other stories such as classic Lovecraftian horror. So head on over to his Instagram page, give him a follow, give him a like, tell him Ryan sent you. Also check out the comic in itself. I actually scrolled through a little bit of it, and it does seem to be pretty damn cool. So go ahead and check it out. Again, tell him Ryan sent you. And if you want to be a Patreon supporter of mine, that link will also be in the description below for you as well. So the funny thing about apostles and their transformations is even though we know how they work, we haven't actually seen a full scenario of it take place from start to finish. But everything that we need to know is essentially told to us within the first arc involving the character known as the Count. The Count is already an apostle when he's first introduced, but soon after we get the first appearance of a Bailet and its explanation that it's a tool used to call forth the God Hand in exchange for a significant sacrifice, something that represents your ties to humanity, and with your embracement of evil, you will be given great power in exchange for that sacrifice. But a Bailet can't be used by just anyone or whenever the person wants. Or I guess I should say that want has to be an all-encompassing desire, one from desperation and heightened emotion. The first chapters in the manga to start giving us all the concepts about this is called The Guardians of Desire. That in itself is referring to the God Hand, as they are the guardians or the symbols of authority in between you and your desire. A Bailet will only activate when a person needs it most, when they are at their wit's end, pushed to the end of their rope, when they are at a point in life where they are ready to say fuck it to the world, to give up their humanity and give in to their desire at whatever cost it may take. The specific moment could be called fate or causality. Causality is talked about a lot in Berserk, and it's about cause and effect. We are talking about predestined fate, but that fate isn't a guarantee. The free will of man still means they get to make that choice. But the point of causality is that everything will align in a way that it will tip a person so far within that particular direction that when given the choice of power for sacrifice, they will more than likely choose to make that sacrifice. It's basically counting on the probability of a need for an escape from the cause of suffering, and perhaps the level of desire a person has to get away from their horrible circumstances leads into the power of their apostle forms. There's been many different apostle designs and forms shown within the course of the Berserk story, and many fans tend to joke that some apostles come out being massively powerful beasts like Zod or Grunbel, larger-than-life powerhouses of strength and prowess, and then there's this little frog guy. And let's not forget about the potential unlimited power of the Snail Apostle, an apostle so strong that Miura never fully dared show us what he could really do in battle, and perhaps we're all better off that way. But why is it the case that some apostles are so powerful and others seem to be just weird, goony little guys? Well, this is just a theory, complete headcanon, as most of my videos are, by the way. Don't take my videos as law as far as Berserk goes. This is all just my thoughts, feelings, and opinions. But I do think the apostle form and its power does correlate to who the person was as a human and how great their desire was. Let's take Rosine for an example. Rosine was an abused and traumatized child who was unable to cope with the harsh, cruel reality that she was unfortunately born into. She embraced the stories of the fantastical worlds of elves and the idea that she would find the Misty Valley and live there among them, away from the violent and chaotic world of uncaring adults, and fly free with the elves of her dreams. Rosine had the imagination and fantasy of a child that was exaggerated to the point where she needed it to be true. Rosine's sacrifice of her parents and her desire to be an elf herself influenced her apostle form and what it would look like. Now, we don't know if she still has a human form to go alongside it, but it's never shown in the manga, and it seems as though she was perpetually within her moth-like body, and this could very well relate to the desire that she had for her fantasies and the stories she was told to be real. Also remember that Rosine was extremely powerful and gave Guts one of the hardest and most brutal battles of his entire apostle-slaying career. Rosine had several transformations. She could fly at supersonic speeds, and she was able to stab Guts through his arm, through his face, and break his hand. In all honesty, if not for Puck's healing abilities, Guts probably would have died from his injuries after this fight. But then you have to think that before becoming an apostle, Rosine was just a little girl. So how did a little girl become so strong after transforming when you have other examples like a grown man like this boar apostle, whom in his human form kind of looks like Danny DeVito on crack? Well, when talking about Danny DeVito, he's shown to be a man of very low intelligence. Rosine, on the other hand, has a lot of personality to her. So could it be that Rosine's desire manifested actually increased her power to these extreme levels, or at least had a hand in it? Whereas the passion and desire of a lower intelligence person wouldn't make them as powerful, since the power could be directly correlated to desire. Berserk has shown that both on small and large scales that desire has an intense manifestation power to it. It's the very thing that allowed a godlike being such as the idea of evil to come into existence. A single person's desire can be so strong that when given the opportunity while embracing evil, it can transform a little girl into a Queen Mothra bitch monster. And on a larger scale, look at the entire Tower of Conviction finale, including the incarnation ceremony. The egg of the perfect world was an apostle that acted sort of like a Bailet, but not just for one person, but a collected whole. As the restless souls around the tower collected from years of unjust torturing from the hands of the Holy See began to rise, coming for the brands of Guts and Casca, the people of Albion all ran towards the tower for salvation, and as they became swallowed up by the mass of dark energy from the restless souls, they all collectively desired the same thing. They wanted someone to save them from this darkness. And not just someone, but a divine figure. They wanted their Hawk of Light. They wanted someone to give their suffering meaning. A hero, a savior, a god. And as a regular Bailet reacts to a single person's desire and brings them to the God Hand, the Bailet Apostle reacts to the desires of many and brought a God Hand to them. Another interesting point to think about is the concept of desiring something. You are asking someone or something else to give you release, to give you power. Yes, you are making a sacrifice, but at the end of the day, you are saying, give me. I desire an escape from my humanity, and then that desire is granted and made permanent until your death. In which case you reap what you sow, and by embracing yourself within your evil, your soul will then remain tainted and dark, and swirl in torment for the rest of time. However, there is another way to achieve power in Berserk that is almost in direct opposition to how the Bailets and the Guardians of Desire work, and that deals with magic. To be a magic user, it requires not but a moment of desperation, but years of intense physical and mental training. It requires an understanding of how the world and nature works around you. It requires a respect for life and death, and balance within all things. To use magic, what is essentially happening is you are borrowing power temporarily by requesting it from a spirit that flows naturally within the world, to enter the astral world and find an elemental spirit, and channeling their power through your physical body. So unlike an apostle transformation, this is not a matter of how badly you want something. This is requesting and showing gratitude to the elements and hoping that they allow themselves to work through you. And it's also momentary, all dependent on the situation at hand. And this power doesn't usually fill the magic user's body, but allows them to control the element. Floods, flaming wheels, protection spells, it all comes from within this territory. The 4 elemental kings, unlike the Guardians of Desire, seem to be more neutral than anything else, not influenced by a collective of humanity or by causality. They just simply exist, and there's no narrative that they need to follow. And I just thought it was interesting, the difference between the acquirement of power. Maybe it's an obvious observation and doesn't deserve an entire video made about it, but I was really loving this idea of desire versus gratitude. To need power or to ask for power. To have something handed to you or to train and work for it yourself. To give in to your darkness and say, fuck it. Or train really hard to overcome the easy way out. It's never going to be easy. It never is. The world is harsh, it's cruel, it's indifferent. But as much of a punishment as that may feel, there is also a freedom within it. Because as much as causality wants to force you to do one thing, you still do always have a choice. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think about this topic. Leave all your thoughts, feelings, and opinions down below. Please like the video and comment on it as well. And check out the description, and please follow Bleak Kingdom and his Instagram page down below in the description. And you'll also find all of my various social media links as well. Thanks as always for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you next time.